of our session today is going to be about the bonds between VFW Post 358 and the 109th. And I was hoping to just do some general introductions before we start the questioning. I would start by introducing myself, if that's all right. My name is Hauprich. I'm the proprietor of Legacies Unlimited in Ballston Spa, and we're committed to preserving the past and present for future generations. And we have present today Staff Sergeant Derek Monahan, Technical Sergeant Leslie Gould. We have from the Ladies Auxiliary Karen Shea and Pamela Manning, and on the far left, VFW Post 358 Commander Earl Doc Manning. And I want to thank you all so much for coming today. We have a great debt of gratitude to the VFW Post 358 for its assistance in helping us prepare these salutes to patriotism. I would like to start by directing questions first to Staff Sergeant Monahan and Technical Sergeant Leslie Gould. But the first questions are just by way of background, general background. And I was hoping that each of you could state your full name, place of birth, your present age, as well as your military rank and where you are currently serving.
My name is Staff Sergeant Derek Monahan, and I am currently serving at Stratton Air National Guard Base as a USAP AGR member. 30 years old, and I grew up in the area.
Thank you.
My name is Leslie Earl Gould, Tech Sergeant, United States Air Force, locally at Stratton Air National Guard Base. Also, I was born and raised in the Adirondacks in Ticonderoga and Crown Point, off Lake Champlain, and the age is 56.
I'm Karen Shea. I'm with the Ladies Auxiliary. I'm a past president, and I grew up right here in Ballston.
And my name is Pamela Manning. I'm a member of the Ladies Auxiliary, Post 358. I grew up in Schenectady. I have no rank in the auxiliary.
Earl Manning, Post Commander, grew up in Ballston Spa, lived and gonna die here. And my age is 66.
I was in the surgical field, oral surgery and dental and medical. Worked a full-time job prior to coming into the service. I enlisted when I was 25 years old. I originally wanted to enlist right before September 11th actually happened.
Before,
when I was
for
17
what
years
reason?
old. I always wanted to be in the military. My grandfather served in the Army, and kind of idolized him. And
what was his name?
John Monahan.
And you kind of idolized him?
Mm-hmm. And just always wanted to be in the military. It seemed like the right thing to do, and kind of like the regimented lifestyle. So I enlisted.
Did the events of 9/11, the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, impact your decision as well?
They definitely played a part in it. More so after it happened. But the fire was already started prior to that when I was 17 years old. Before I graduated high school, I wanted to early enlist. One of the reasons I didn't was because my parents, grandparents, and everyone I knew kind of pushed the idea, go to college and get a degree. And
Prior to entering the military service, I was doing construction work, doing for foundations and that kind of things. So I was in the construction business, doing different types of work.
Mm-hmm. And this was in the Adirondacks?
No, this was actually in the Capital District. I was at the age of 23, and it was couple years out of high school, probably about 1980, is when I actually enlisted in the military on a delayed enlistment program they had. And the main reason why I joined is that I always had a fascination as a kid watching the airplanes fly over the Adirondacks, coming out of Plattsburgh, and you'd hear the sound barely broken back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, that really piqued my interest, and so I always wanted to work on airplanes, so that's why I joined the Air Force. I was in the military from 1980 to 88, and then after that I worked at a local hospital, Leonard Hospital in Troy, doing biomedical work. Has nothing to do with airplanes, but that just sat in something I picked up on and I could do. From there, I worked there for a number of years until 9/11, and I was working on the evening shift, so I was woken up in the morning by my wife, which told me, that a plane had just hit the World Trade Centers. And being prior service and, my military background, I was very patriotic, so I knew I had to do something and go back in because I had more to give to my country.
I received my basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in 2009. That's where you receive your Air Force basic military training.
And did you receive any special training there, specialized training? Because I'm trying to determine the things that led you to the current duties that you have in your missions. And
Yeah, I'm a C-130 crew chief, along with an LC-130 crew chief. And our following training after military basic training at Lackland, I went to Wichita Falls, Texas, and received training there to be a crew chief. Back to the 109th. I enlisted through the 109th as a traditional guardsman after I returned home. After almost a year's worth of training, applied for a full-time position on the base, and where I've been ever since.
I served my basic training in April or March of 1981 when I went to basic training.
1947.
Yeah.
was yours also at Lackland Air Force
Yes.
Base? Okay.
It's been around quite a while.
Yes.
Not there, but they send you to a technical school afterward for what your trade is going to be, whether it's crew chief or, load masters, things like that. But, I went to out to Mountain Home, Idaho for that. And Shepherd Air Force Base.
Shepherd?
Shepherd was actually before the Mountain Home one. But it's like a more narrowed down training that you get when you go to a field detachment training.
'66, when I graduated from high school, I went in United States Marines, did basic boot camp in Paris Island.
Your boot camp was Paris Island
Yeah,
in 1966?
yeah, in June, August, and June, July, and August. And then from there, I went to Quantico, Virginia. Got ammo tech school.
Now, you were, of course, enlisted. You enlisted. You were not drafted. I mean, this would have been during
Yeah, I enlisted.
You enlisted. Okay, so you're obviously also very
There were
patriotic.
Letter for
I'm sorry.
years. There's a word for and a letter for years.
Okay. Because it was a very different climate in America at that time.
Yeah, it was cold.
No, yeah, Cold War.
Oh, Vietnam was on.
Yes, I know. I remember it
Cold
well.
flash and that's where I wanted to go.
No, but I'm just thinking this was a time when there were so many draft dodgers. I'm so impressed
Oh, yeah,
that
was
you
in
enlisted.
Canada.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of them here.
Hmm.
I just thought it was my
Why was-
duty to go in the service.
And why did you feel it was your duty?
Because my father was a Marine.
And your father's name?
And Earl Ross Manning.
Earl Ross Manning. Had been a United States Marine?
Yeah, he was in World War II, Okinawa.
Okay. And following your basic training, where were you sent, deployed?
I went to,
The only place?
huh?
That's the only place there
No, I
was?
went to Camp Pendleton for staging to go to Vietnam, and then I got sidetracked and got placed in Okinawa for 6 months.
Okay.
And then from Okinawa, I went to Vietnam, stayed there a year, extended. And on my second extension over there, my father died and they wouldn't let me have my third one.
Sorry.
And I come home and went back down to North Carolina, and I was there for 2 days, and they shipped me out to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Wow.
Oh.
They didn't like the way I stood CG inspection. Pair of cut off utilities and green socks that come up to my knees. When you get sent home on emergency leave,
Yes.
you leave with the clothes on your back and they're supposed to send you the rest of it. Well, 2 months later, I ain't got nothing. I walk in down to Camp Lejeune and Captain Bates goes to me, Corporal Manning, you're standing in the CG inspection in the morning. And I go, sir, I don't want to hear no buts. I told you you're standing there. And I said, yes, sir. And I stood it. At the end of the day, I had a full set of uniforms, and I was on my way to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. When I come back from Cuba, I got discharged.
I think there's a commonality, with wanting to serve your country and listening.
And volunteering to go in, rather than
Right.
being told you have to.
I find that very impressive. Okay. So that is one of the common threads, one of the many threads that I'm sure we're going to be hearing about as the interview progresses.
I got my first actual deployment, which was my first duty station, was a 2-year tour in England. It was a place called Upper Heyford. But that was back in the Cold War days under U.S. President Ronald Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's so many things that were required to do back then. You have to get used to wearing a gas mask. You go through the training, actually using the tear gas there and stuff for the training. So that way you really knew that it's important to learn those things and to be efficient with them, so that you're going to be a survivor. A lot of teamwork in the military. That's what it's all about. You've got to have the teamwork, or the mission doesn't go on. You work together to accomplish a common goal. To be able to think, on your own, rather than having to always be told all the time. Because eventually you're going to be a supervisor, so you're going to have to be able to be the one to be giving the orders for people to do, and what kind of work needs to be accomplished in order to succeed at the mission.
Right. So your leadership skills were certainly developed already at that point in time.
And that's important, because you don't want to see people fail, so you want to help them actually to succeed rather than watch people fail. You want to be the one to help them succeed.
My earliest deployments, I came into the 109th. Like I said earlier, I joined as a traditional guardsman. The primary mission of our base is our Arctic and Antarctic theater. We have the only C-130s in the world with snow skis, so we're able to go down to Antarctica for Operation Defreeze and up to Greenland. So I've my first rotation with the unit down to Operation Defreeze in Antarctica was back in 2010, and I second everything that Tech Sergeant Gould has said about teamwork and leadership, and you have to work as a team no matter where and when you get deployed. It's a unique thing about the military is no matter what job you have, if that job is not being done, essentially everything else will be affected by that.
2001, after 9/11 happened, I joined up the unit over there, and my first actual trip, after being properly trained on the aircraft, you work on the skis and things, because that's something unique.
Yeah, those skis sound very exciting.
Oh yeah, and you're supporting an actual C-130 Hercules, So some people ask, can they land on water? You go, yeah. You're going into something for the average person will never see. And very select people that end up going there. Whether you're supporting a peacetime mission, like support of National Science Foundation there, and their success and what they're doing, their training, their studies, the research that they're doing, and it's the only place in the world that they can actually do a lot of this study because of the pristine, clean atmosphere and stuff that they deal with down there. January of 2004, I went down there as a guardsman. So I was an Air National Guard member, but I was only there for drills. I flew down commercially all the way to New Zealand, as far as you can go commercially, and from there, a C-130 Hercules down to McMurdo Station. I got there, and the first thing you notice is when they open up the ramp and door of the C-130 and all this bright light comes in. Because the sun's around 24 hours a day down there at that time of year. So that's the beginning of the year. Here I am, they open it up, all of a sudden you feel this cold air coming in.
Stark
welcome to
contrast.
Antarctica, yeah. Well, it averages, I'm going to say during their summer at McMurdo Station.
Depending in the beginning or the end.
At that time of year,
season,
that would be midsummer for them. And you're talking maybe upper 20s, low 30s. Sometimes it might peak into the low 40s a couple of days and then
with
go
the
back
wind chill,
down.
it could be -50, -60, depending on the time of year you're down there and the weather.
And it
Now-
could be midsummer and it's still cold.
But when you were saying their midsummer, I'm confused. Their summer was in January?
Well, there's what we call summer down there. It's like middle December
Mid-December.
to almost the middle of February. So it's like that 2-month time frame. Whereas ours would be from middle of June, middle of August up
Right.
here, but being that we have land here for the sun to reflect off of and generate heat off of. Down there you don't have that. It's white, or it's white. But no, there is land there, but most of it's covered with snow.
It was a whole new experience. Very, very cold, very bright, like Les said. As we work on the C-130s, we, as crew chiefs, are responsible for all the pre, post, and through flight inspections of that airframe. That's our airplane, from changing windows to changing tires, brakes, refueling, that whole entire airframe. The C-130 is a really cool aircraft that it can be configured in many different ways. You can haul troops, you can haul cargo, fuel. It's my tech school.
Recyclables.
Yeah, my tech school teacher described it as a Swiss Army knife of the Air Force.
The Swiss Army knife
Yeah,
of the
so
Air Force.
We were slated to go over to Afghanistan last year, March to August, July?
March to July.
March to July timeframe. And we went, we served over at Bagram Air Force Base.
Right, in a combat zone.
In a combat zone.
But in order to be a VFW member, you have to have served, I believe it's 30 plus days, Doc, in a combat zone. You have to have a DD Form 214, 30 plus days in a combat zone. Les and I, by the time we got back, I think it was 134 days. Les was a current member at the 109th when I got back from tech school back in 2009.
So in
And
2009.
he was a full-time active duty asset. And I was a traditional guardsman to the base, just coming back on my 30-day on-the-job training. We're both flight line crew chiefs at the 109th, so.
Do the same jobs, just at different levels. So your skill level makes a difference there, you know. So I was already a staff sergeant for the prior service. So when I joined the unit, I carried my current rank over to join the unit, and that was a staff sergeant at the time.
So I came in as an airman first class, fresh out of boot camp at tech school, and that's when Les and I met.
So did you become his mentor also? I mean, in addition to
No, we
it?
kind of worked the flight line, you know, with a lot of other crew chiefs, but, you know, doing different duties. He had to get current on training, so he would be out getting trained, would be help teaching them how to do refuels, things like that. You know, everybody's got to start somewhere, so that's what he did, you know. Did his 30 days, and then after that, then he applied for a full-time position there and was hired. So, because, you know, we look at that too, to see how the younger guys are coming up. Some of them, it takes a while, so we want to give them more time as a guardsman to get properly trained before we want to put them in a full-time position. So, you know, some people pick it up faster than others, and he was. Yeah.
So we did multiple Antarctic deployments together during this time, and we were tasked to go over to Afghanistan. So we being over there, we slept in the same little shack or bee hut they call it. we
approximately paneling, and that's about it.
We worked the same shift, and we did the same job. Like Les was saying, we're both crew chiefs on the flight line.
Well,
So,
morale-wise, was it important to the two of you because you already had that common background?
We weren't going to go over there individually, but we set out to do, before that, when we were in Antarctica, there was one of the seasons that we had been down there. It was right after, when you first went down there for the first full season.
Yep.
We were on the same shift and stuff, and so he got to work around me, and he could see like my work ethic, and it was very similar to what his was already, you know. But we didn't know that because we had just started and got to know each other, and so he enjoyed being around me with the work ethic and stuff. So it really worked out good. We were kind of like, you know, two peas in a pod in a sense. I mean,
That's
really,
wonderful.
think about it, you know.
Well, yeah,
Our
and-
likes, dislikes, and things like that, family values and all that. Absolutely.
That's what I want to still go back and talk more about the deployments, you know, the Operation Deep Freeze. But I'm so curious to know about when you first came to VFW Post 358, was Commander Manning here to meet you with a red, white, and blue carpet rolled out? How did all of that come about?
Well, while we were...
I realize we're fast forwarding. I do understand.
I think what we'd have to do is we'd have to talk about our Afghanistan deployment.
Then please do.
If you want to know the connection between us
Yes.
and the VFW, when we were over in Afghanistan, 2012, we were getting close to actually midway. It was June 2012, and we were waiting for our plane to come back or something like that. we were inside on the internet. And one of the guys that we were there with from another unit, doing the same thing, we were deployed together. He mentioned to us the American Legion, the VFW, and like a lot of people that I've come across and Les has come across, you know, just in the past year that we've been members here, no one knows what a VFW is. A majority, I shouldn't say no one. A majority of people have no idea what a VFW is. And,
Why do you think that is?
And you're speaking about military.
military and the general public.
And,
I think it's across the board.
I think it's a perception, what people think it is, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, as I was growing up as a teenager, a friend of mine, his parents were part of a VFW. And the thing is, they were always like, you know, we'd go over there, they'd be doing dinners and stuff, so we'd do dishes. But, you know, we'd see them out there drinking and stuff. And we're thinking in our mind as a kid, you're looking at that, it's like, this is what they do. You know what I mean? But being that we're there now, it's like we see that it's far from the truth. You know, it's all the good things
So
that
there were
they do.
some major misconceptions.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I'm thinking, you know, a lot of people have those kind of perceptions and not really knowing the story behind them and what they're doing.
Basically, we went online after one of our friends, we were talking about the VFW. We went online and we were looking at the website, and we were just, you know, together we were looking at all the different things that the VFW, that you could do at the VFW, that the VFW has to offer you, including, you know, some perks. There's life insurance, free life insurance policy. There's discounts on haircuts or discounts at certain stores. Just all these little things. Not necessarily that's what we were chasing. So Les and I think I did it first. I was like, you know what the heck? It was $30 or $35 at the time. I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and apply to the VFW at large, because we were away from home, and so we basically. But the biggest thing was, aside from discounts and insurance, we wanted to continue serving our country and our veterans, because when you're overseas in a situation like that, I think anytime you're deployed, it's strenuous. It's a little bit. It's totally different from being at home. But when you're in a combat zone where people are shooting at you, and so on and so forth, it's a little bit of a different bond and commonality that's formed. You know, when we got back home, we had tables in this building that I was talking about with the computers that were just littered with care packages from local churches, from, you know, people's hometowns, and more so than anything was the VFW, from all over the United States. VFW sent beef jerky, Snicker bars. They were melted by the time they got there, but Snicker bars and cookies and candy and whatever, you know, just things that kind of got your mind off of being where we were. So, you know, that was just something that Les and I, we automatically
So that made
did.
a tremendous impression, these care packages, because I know you mentioned
The support.
that's something you've been doing
That's
in conjunction with VFW Post 358 also.
After we joined members at large, we returned home July, and I think it was September timeframe. Les and I stopped in separate occasions. We stopped in, and I came first. It was right down the street from me. Les lives all the way in Lansingburg. For me, it's a 10-15 minute drive from Burnt Hills. Les is
About an hour.
40, 45 an hour.
So it's a
something like
longer drive, okay.
But I stopped in and met one of the post members, and I believe Karen was here.
Do you remember who? Okay, so you met Karen?
Working at the bar that day. So, yeah, I stopped in. I had a members at large card that was current because I just paid, and I asked if I could join this post in particular because I wanted to get involved. And Les, the next couple of days, he came up.
Yeah.
So you came
and we
first and you
came.
told Les about
Oh,
your
yeah. He
experience?
says, I think
Yeah.
I found a post
We
for
I
us.
think I...
His
We found a
exact
home.
words right there.
Aw.
So we got in contact with John Lombardo.
And how did you know to get in touch with John Lombardo?
One of the members.
Karen told you?
There was a couple ways, I guess. But we got John's number and email address.
We
We
came
got.
to the very next
Yep,
meeting.
we got in touch with him, and then October. Actually, this is coming up our year anniversary.
Happy anniversary, everybody!
With the post. But
Wow.
last October was our first meeting here, and it was nothing more than nothing less than I expected.
Remember being welcomed, because I was wondering about how you were welcomed here and how
Oh, no,
they were
no,
welcomed
you
here
had
when
all
the time
World War
came.
II, World War I vets in here.
So there
Vietnam
were World
was
War...
not a war.
Remember that?
You mean the perception?
Oh, yeah.
So in the era that you joined
We
the
were,
VFW...
we were welcomed a lot better because most of our parents were members here.
Mhm.
What blew me away personally was just how much when you actually sit down, not to get too in depth, but when you sit down in one of our meetings and we put things on the table and we vote for these great things to continue taking care of our veterans, especially the ones that are in nursing homes and assisted living that still need our help.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What is being done to take care of our veterans?
Well, the one thing that I recall in particular at the first meeting, I kind of thought it was like a town board meeting at first. I was like, oh boy. but then when we started talking about it was right before Christmas time. It was our October meeting, so we started to put the bug in people's ears about Christmas gifts, and I think we did gift cards or something for these veterans, and I was expecting like a Dunkin' Donuts coffee or and we contributed a substantial amount of money to these gift cards to these homebound or assisted living veterans, and people that we don't personally know, but because they're our brothers in arms, they're our fellow VFWs.